In this lesson, we'll talk about extracting maps from our models in Mudbox. So most of the time, you're probably going to be needing to get this geometry out of Mudbox, and you want to recreate the sculpted detail that you've created in another application or move it down the pipeline. To do that, typically you'll use either displacement maps or normal maps, and those need to be calculated. And we can do that here in Mudbox by going to UVs and maps and going to extract texture maps, and we can create a new operation there. So I want to make sure that I'm on the little imp guy. Okay, and let's go down to the lowest level, and this is the level that we want to be able to move and manipulate and animate, let's say. But we need to have visually the look of the high res, so we want to be able to see all the wrinkles and sculpting that we did, but be able to work with a low res model. So that's where the normal map would come in, or displacement in the case of rendering something at render time. Normal map would allow you to do it in real time, like in a game engine. So let's go to UVs and maps, extract texture maps, and let's create a new operation. And we want to create a normal map, so we'll activate that. And we want to add the imp model into the target and into the source because we're using the same geometry here. So let me grab the imp, and then we can add it in here as well. And level 0 is our target. That's the base level. That's what's going to be that's what's going to have the map applied. And then level 5 is where we're going to be calculating that from. So you can pick and choose which levels you want to actually use. Now it is based on the UVs, so it's going to be based on our 3-tile UV setup for this guy. We can go ahead, come down here. There's 2 different methods if we're using different levels of the same mesh. We can use ray casting, which you can use on any models, or we can use the subdivision method as well. So you can try both of those. One of them is kind of a little bit quicker, maybe. Ray casting, you have to pick kind of the search distance, but you can hit this best guess to choose that. So you can pick which one of those you want to use. I'm just going to choose ray casting. So it's basically going to send rays out of our geometry looking for the high-res mesh and then calculating a map based on that. We can choose to create different sized maps. So if we want to create like a 2K map, keep in mind this is 3 tiles, so each one of these is going to be 2K. We also can change the compatibility. We're going to be sending this to Maya, but this same method will work with other applications as well. But you can change that compatibility right in here. If we're going to be deforming this, typically you kind of use tangent space. This is already posed, so either way, but we're going to just use tangent. Object and world space are more for objects that aren't object space, something that maybe is not deforming, but can be moved around. Tangent space if you want to deform it. So we'll make this as a texture, and let's choose a name for it. So I'm just going to drop it into images in our project file. Go to JPEG. I've also dropped a screen grab in there for you to take a look at if you want to. But for this, let's go ahead and call this imp normal, and we'll just make it a JPEG. I'll save that out, and we can choose to preview that as a normal map. So let's go ahead and hit extract, and let that do its work. So you're going to have a results box that comes up and tells you what all it's done, what it has extracted, the maps that it's created. You can do multiple maps at the same time if you want to. You could create normal map, or displacement map, or vector displacement even if you want to. Here it says the map extraction has finished successfully, and it gives us the names and where those actual maps were created. So you can see here we actually have 3 maps that have been created. That's just because we have 3 tiles. So we have the body, the arms and legs, and the face. So it's actually gone in and created those. Now the indicators here are U1, V1, and so this initial tile, this is U1, V1, and then if you move over from left to right, you're going in the U direction. So this would be U2 and U3. Now we're still on the same row vertically, and so the V stays the same. If you were to come up here, this would be U1, V2, and so forth. So that's how that kind of works. So now that we have that normal map, it's been loaded up here in our normal map. I'm going to actually get rid of the bump map. Let me delete this layer. So we just have the normal map here. We have a couple of different layers, and so when we send this, we can open up the options, and let's go into preferences. And you can see there's an option if we don't want to send the paint layers, or maybe we want to flatten the paint layers in each channel before we send them, or want to send the paint layers out separately. So we have flattened paint layers in each channel, so within the diffuse it would flatten those down before it actually would send them over. Otherwise, you could do it yourself, flatten them down if you wanted to, kind of merge visible. If you wanted to do it that way, you could do it that way. So let's go ahead and send this over. The normal map has been loaded up as a preview. So let's go ahead and send to Maya. Let's say send selected as new scene. And we're just working with the imp itself, not the other pieces right now. But you could send the other pieces as well. So we'll go ahead and let that think for a moment. So here it is loaded up in Maya. You can see it's in the pose, and there's the low res. Let's go under shading. I'm just going to choose to get smooth shading. And let's turn on hardware texturing, which will show us the maps. And then to see the normal map, we'll turn on high quality rendering. And there you can see that the normal map has come through. Now the texture doesn't look exactly the same. The material attributes don't look exactly the same. The materials themselves don't really transfer directly. So we'd have to spend a little bit of work on the materials. But you can get the maps out, and you can get the normal map out. So working with a low-res mesh, you can still get that high-res look, and then you could take your other pieces and export those out as well and create a nice render in your third-party application. In this case, we're using Maya, but you don't have to have Maya. You can use whatever application that you want. Mudbox works directly with the other Autodesk applications more closely. So if you have Maya or 3ds Max or Softimage, you've got these options here to move back and forth very quickly. But there are ways to transfer with other applications as well. Exporting OBJs, exporting maps, and reapplying those maps just takes a little bit more time and effort to do that. Okay, so if I take this back up to the highest level here so that we can see it, and then we can turn back on our depth of field to get kind of an interesting look there. As we talk about just kind of ending up this introduction. So there's a lot of information that we weren't able to go over in the time that we had. You can go through posing. There's a lot of information there as far as posing up, saving poses, creating skeletons. You can actually import skeletons from Maya and pose up that way. There is information with the curves and the map extraction. You can also sculpt using a map, so we could have a displacement map that is calculated from this. We could actually bring this in as that displacement map in as a sculpt layer and create sculpt that way. You can also rebuild geometry. So really dig in and look. We have a lot of courses that cover different projects in Mudbox and going through those. So just kind of search on our site for that information. It'll be there. But really the purpose of this course was just to get you ramped up and get you a good introduction into Mudbox 2014 so that you can get started creating something very quickly in that. So we went over a lot of information. We went over working with base meshes, subdividing geometry, painting and sculpting, so some of the different brushes. We also have sculpting and painting courses that go through each one of these sculpt tools and each one of these paint tools. So if you're more interested in going through some of those specific tools and how those work, feel free to check those out as well. So hope you've enjoyed the last few hours going through kind of an introduction to Mudbox. I know I've enjoyed spending some time with you, so hopefully we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.